Coach, I guess just kind of your general thoughts on the season kind of winding down and come to an end.
It was obviously an eventful season. It was a season of some peaks and and a big valley, in the middle of it. So it was the most unusual season I've been in. In that regard, I think 2006, when I was with Columbus, was probably a season I had a similar amount of injuries. So that made this season a bit unusual. But even doing all that, we caught ourselves at the end. We started to get some good results, and put ourselves in basically a position to advance to the conference finals.
You had made it clear after the Dallas match that while you wanted to return, it wasn't 100% your call. What was sort of the timeline like for you this week in sort of the decision to come back?
I mean, I signed a contract last year that was a 3-year contract. So, but contracts in professional sports, I've been around it long enough that I know that all what it means is that they got to pay you out if they tell you to go. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to be here. And, I always want to give ownership, and ownership has been great, but I always want to give ownership that prerogative that, if they feel they want to make a change or need to make a change, that's open to them. So I'm never presumptuous in terms of assuming that I'm going to be here. Obviously, my expectation is that I'm going to be here. My thoughts after the game were probably not pleasant thoughts, and took me maybe a day or two to recover. But then my thoughts are always, okay, how do we make this better? What do we do to get over the hurdle next year?
As you look forward to next year, Ziggy, what are you looking to see to improve on?
Well, I mean, this is probably going to be the most eventful offseason in MLS history, I think. I've been involved in MLS since '99. I had good friends involved, so I've sort of known the league from the beginning. I think this is going to be the toughest year for players. I think there's going to be more of the, whatever you want to call them, the middle-income players that are going to get squeezed out at various teams. And I think what you're going to see with a lot of teams is it's going to be, there's going to be a group of players, and then they're going to be supported by a lot of young players underneath. And for us, that's going to be a change that's probably going to take place within our roster. I think we've got to become faster. I think that's something for our team. Everybody talks about, there's been a big thing made about young and old. All what I know is there's only 2 kinds of players, good players and bad players. And so obviously if you can't run, then you move from the category of good player to bad player. So I think we have a number of good players on our team. Age doesn't matter, but I do think we have to become faster. We have to become a little more athletic and in basically key parts of the field, and we have to do a better job of keeping possession of the ball and moving forward as a group. I think we did that very well early in the season, and even though we won games at the end of the season, we never really found that rhythm again like we had at the beginning of the year.
Ogle was very good late, but he seemed to have his troubles in the final series. Did you not think that was in any way related to him wearing down or his age?
No, I mean, he just had a bad game. I mean, without him, we wouldn't have been in the position that we were in. He and Clint had come through towards the end of the year. Clint came through in the early rounds of the playoffs for us as well. And it was just, I'm as probably flabbergasted by it as everybody else is. Ova left right after the game and to go join Nigeria, so we really haven't had a chance to talk about it. But I don't think it was so much breaking down because we had a week to prepare for the game. It was just he had an off game. It happens.
What was the process like for you after the loss in Dallas? Obviously, you said you had some negative thoughts afterwards. How long did that kind of last before you were able to, or if you even have, kind of turned the table and started looking forward?
Besides me waking up every half an hour thinking 3 minutes is all what it took, or us making sure that 1-1 was good enough, and some players realizing that that we're not trying to counterattack to score a second goal, that we need to defend this goal. So people, at times of tension, people blow assignments. The guy who was supposed to be at the near post wasn't there. He was standing 20 yards outside the 18. You're trying to scream at him, but he's not going to hear you. So those are things that end up happening, when you have those exciting, stressful moments. So, I mean, for sure, I wanted to get away from it for a few days and just not think about it. Right now, to me, that game already seems like it was a month ago or 2 months ago. It doesn't seem like it was only 10 days ago. For me, then, the thoughts are immediately upon, okay, what do we need? What are the resources that we have? Myself and Garth sitting together, where are we at, from a standpoint of salary cap? What are the decisions that we have to make? Where's our hand going to be forced? Who are the players we're going to be able to hold on to? Who are the players we're going to have to move? Who are the players that we need to bring in to fill some holes? And so that's where my next thoughts go.
When you look back at 2015, do you have any regrets or any moments that are causing you maybe doubt, or you're kind of, maybe if I'd played it a different way, something else would have happened?
I wish I wouldn't have gotten sick of that one period of the season, for sure. But, we can talk about it at different ways or times, but certainly that Open Cup game, if we go back and relive that moment, there's been so much tragedy in the world, so it's an unfair thing to say, but I certainly hope I don't see that referee ever again. But it's a situation where, that sort of set us onto a spiral that it took us a while to get out of. And, if that particular, I think it was a Tuesday, if that particular Tuesday hadn't happened, maybe our season in the middle of the season would have been different. I mean, it wasn't a huge difference. I mean, if we would have gotten 2, 3, 4 more points in that period of time, it would have, obviously affected our seedings greatly, and maybe affected whether we had to play the midweek game and all those things, whether we were home the second game or away. So it would have had an impact on all of those. So certainly for me, that was a real defining point of our season, unfortunately a negative one.
This is Garth's first real off-season with you guys, and also the tweak of ownership a little bit. Do either of those things make it harder for you to bring into camp the team that reflects your vision?
No. I think Garth and me are working together. We're partners in this as we move forward. The organization always has been, and Adrian has set that tone along with Joe. But Adrian was the one that I worked more closely with on a day-to-day basis, and our organization has always been based upon we. It's always been a collective decision, and the realization has always been, for myself as coach, that at the end of the day, I've got to give the okay for the players that we have. Sometimes as a coach, you're very insistent on certain aspects. On other aspects, you can maybe go either way. And, but I also realize for us, the situation that's the hardest right now is just dealing with the salary cap, which is not just us, it's a lot of teams in the league, and how you move forward from there. That's what makes this off-season particularly difficult.
You mentioned your timeline for recovery in general, just in recovering from the loss here, but when did you find out from management that it was going to be you coming back?
I think same time as you guys found out at Thursday night, so, it wasn't, how can I say this? I mean, it wasn't anything I was worried about. It wasn't anything that I was saying, oh my God, what's going to happen? I'd spoken about it with my family, and, and I know the business. Bora told me a long time ago when I worked for Bora, as a coach, you always have a suitcase packed because eventually you're going to leave. And I know one day my time here is going to end. Hopefully it'll continue on, and what I'm most appreciative is being able to have another opportunity to bring this elusive thing called the MLS Cup to our club.
Has it been clarified yet when the team reconvenes for Concacaf preparations?
The union is the union. So even though, the union has a certain amount of weeks that you can prepare for your first MLS game, and even though we play a game, I forget what it is exactly, 10 days before the first MLS game, we're not allowed to start training one day earlier, which is difficult. It just means off-season work that the players have to do. has to be a little more committed, maybe a little more directed from them in terms of seeing what they're being asked to do and complying with that. But we're going to be able to start. I think it's the 25th of January, like everyone else.
Ozzy Alonso has been such a key part of your success here in Seattle. How important is it to you to retain him here and not transfer him somewhere else or, let him go?
I mean, Ozzy's in the same situation as a number of other players are in the sense that sometimes your hands are tied as to what you can do. You have to listen to what other teams say. Ozzy's been a great soldier, for this club, and it was a very important member of this team, and hopefully that'll continue on. But at this time, I mean, I couldn't say which way it's going to go. I mean, there's so many. A juggler sometimes has 3 or 4 balls in the air. I think we've probably got about 10 in the air right now, and it's like once one of those balls hits the ground, that might determine what the next one is. But at this stage, there's a lot of things up in the air, and my biggest thing is I want Ozzy to return to full health and be able to play a complete season and be available for us in the playoffs because that's what's hurt us in the past couple of years.
What's it like when you look at a roster of men who gave their all to you all season long and have to figure out who comes back, who do you let go?
It's difficult. I mean, I promised myself a long time ago when I started coaching that if those decisions become easy for me or I become callous to those decisions, it's something that I don't want to coach anymore then. So it's definitely still a human feeling. It definitely hits your heart. I had a very it was different because it wasn't entirely my decision. That's one of the reasons I was no longer with the Galaxy afterwards, because I expressed that. But, I had a situation where Ezra Hendrickson, who's been with me a long time, and he was my assistant coach, and he was playing for me with the Galaxy, and he got a new contract, and it was for more money, and the GM at the time thought it priced him out of the salary cap range for our club, and I was at his wedding, and a week later I had to tell him, you got traded. That's not an easy thing, and and it's you move on. I think a lot of the players, can't say all of them, okay, but I think the majority of the players understand that it's a business, and they're not personal decisions, and so there's players in this league that I had to trade or move on that are still players that I talk to and are still good friends because they understand that aspect of it, that it is a business, and obviously I have to do. But if that becomes something that I can do without feeling, then I don't want to be that person.
Garth alluded to some possible retirements this year. Who have you talked to about that being a possibility?
We've talked to a number of players about different things, but right now there's nothing to really say.
Towards the end of the year, you and a lot of the players are saying that this team is built to win right now. So now that we're going into the offseason, do you expect a lot of those core players to stay, or it to be more of a transitional rebuilding year?
Well, obviously that's a slogan this team is built to now. I think every team is built to win now. All right, if you're a team that maybe hasn't been in the playoffs, if you're Colorado Rapids or somebody, or Chicago Fire hasn't been in the playoffs now for a couple of years, you might say, okay, here's our 2 or 3 year plan. When I went in at Columbus, we had a very succinct, okay, this is what we're going to try and do over the next couple of years to basically get us there. But, in year 2, we were disappointed when we didn't make the playoffs. And in year 3, even though we were still building the team and still adding pieces, we're ready to win now. So the way we have been at in Seattle from day one, because we've been a playoff team from day one, and we've accomplished things that things that other expansion teams have not. We've always been a team that wants to win now, rather than win down the line. But winning now, it means you need some good players, you need some leadership, you need some veterans, you also need some young players, you need some youth, you need an influx of energy as well at the right times, and And I think when players have shown that they're ready to play, I'll use DeAndre Yedlin as an example. When DeAndre Yedlin came into camp his rookie year, we had a right fullback by the name of Johansson who was part of the Swedish national team pool. We thought DeAndre had the talent, and we moved Johansson because we didn't want to block DeAndre's development because we thought he was ready, and he was ready now. So did we not want to build or win that year? Yeah, we wanted to win that year, even though we were starting a rookie. So it's not about whether you start rookies or start veterans. You always want to win now.
You'll be playing Club America, Concacaf Champions League this season, one of Mexico's best teams easily. How, in your list of achievements for next season, where does that lie?
I mean, it's certainly important. It's a difficult task because of the timing of it. Always for the MLS teams, that timing comes for us in preseason. So we're going into it with 3.5 weeks, maybe 4 weeks of preparation, not a lot of games, and they're in the flow of their season, and they're in the middle of the season. But, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to going back to Azteca, Got to tell one story. So my most interesting story is the first time ever I went to Azteca Stadium to watch a game. I got into the stadium in a trunk of a car. So we had there was 5 of us. There were 4 tickets. He had a box, and so you were allowed to park inside the stadium. But couldn't drive into the stadium with 5. So we drew straws. I got the short straw, so I had to get in the trunk of the car. And we drove in. It was 1983. We watched the opening game between Australia and Mexico at the Under-20 World Championships. So once we got inside, they banged on the trunk, let me out, thankfully, so I could see the game. Ended up watching the game. I promised myself then and there that the next time I came back to Azteca, I wanted to be on the field. And 10 years later, I was on the field standing next to Bora as the assistant coach. So I'm hoping this trip to Azteca is much better than my first one.
What kind of car was that?
I don't know. The trunk wasn't very comfortable, and thankfully I only had to be in there for about 20 minutes. But I know now when I watch those police shows, I know what that feels like.
Do you get to enjoy any of this off season, or do you hit the ground running right away to start focusing on next year?
I mean, you always hit the ground running. Obviously there's going to be some traveling and observing of players. Right now watching a lot of videotape. Eventually want to go see some players as well. And, for me, I know we're planning on a little bit of a vacation, myself and my wife. But as I told her, we have to have another couple go with us so she can hang with them because I need to do something for my soccer stuff in the mornings. So it'll be a little bit of soccer attached to that as well.
Are there any areas on the field specifically that you're looking at new players?
Well, obviously we're looking at different areas, in different positions. We sort of had a rotating door a little bit at left back. I think that's something that we need to solidify. And I think we also need to look at our depth in midfield, and we need to make sure that we solidify that, and adding some pace on the outside is important.
Speaking of the back here for the last question, Andres Correa had no play time on last season. Is he maybe an option that might be at least being looked at for next season on left back?
It depends. Like I said, there's a lot of balls up in the air right now in terms of decisions, and some decisions are in players' courts right now. Some decisions are in our court right now. Andreas' season last year was very difficult because, he didn't come in fit, had to gain his fitness. Every time he was close to, okay, now we think he's ready, his wife had a baby, he would get injured. Something that would happen would always set him back. And so now it's a question of, does he want to stay another year? Is that a challenge that he thinks is good for him? Is that good for our club? What do we think his potential is at the end of the day?
I believe Garth mentioned at the event the other night some promotions from S2. Do you see any of those guys as candidates for making a difference next year?
Obviously some of those guys are going to come in, the camp. I mean, there's guys who are already under contract to us that played a lot of games for us too, like Damian Lowe and people like that, but certainly Ashani Fairclough did well. We want to see him in the camp. Alexanderson scored a goal against the U.S. He represents one of the things we're talking about, some speed on the flanks. So we want to give him as well a good look in preseason. Andy Craven just had surgery on his ankle, so he should be ready to go for preseason. He was very unfortunate that when we signed him and there was playing time for forwards, he gets hurt and he's not able to play. So we want to see how he does, and he's another one who adds to that speed and youth kind of element.
What about Jordan Morris?
Jordan Morris is still a Stanford student at this time.
Unfortunately, on a somber note, obviously the world events that have happened in the last week have been awful and tragic, but they've also kind of taken a toll on the soccer community in the way that some have played out, both positively at Wembley, what was that, yesterday, and not so positively in Germany when they had to cancel the match. How has that affected you kind of as a representative from the soccer community?
I mean, it's just not being a member of the soccer community. It's being a member of the world community. And whenever terrorism, is a dreadful action, and and that fanaticism, sometimes is not a good situation. I think when we live in the United States, having a lot of ties to Europe and background in Europe, having been in Europe for different events like when the Russians invaded Czechoslovakia and things like that, it's like when which goes back a ways, but, having been and lived through that, here we recognize it, we see it, we feel it, but it seems really far away. When you're in Europe, it feels like it's next door. It could happen today, tomorrow, and there's a different kind of anxiety that which is what they're trying to achieve probably, but there's a different type of anxiety that takes over for individuals. So, and it's something obviously we've talked about. Is like, are you sure you want to go to Europe? I said to my wife. Now I've been there, and I know what that feels like, but. Hopefully one day, to whatever God we pray for, that we all understand that, getting along with each other and having peace is the most important thing.